Hey, what's going on, everybody? Brent Hyden here, coming at you on this Monday morning, talking tonight's 9-game slate around the association. Before we dig in, one quick reminder, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. That way you get notified anytime I post a new breakdown video. Congratulations to the few people last week who hit it big. Had one guy bring in just over $50,000 on FanDuel by taking down one of the tournaments there. Then had another good night for another user on Friday nights or Saturday night, actually. So lots of big nights for some of our users. If you stumbled across this video and you're not already subscribed to my projections and content, make sure you hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle will be in the description of this video, and DM me to find out how you can get access to my projections, the rest of my content, my breakdowns, and all that good stuff for a very affordable price. Without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at our slates. Starting over here on DraftKings, we have Orlando and Boston, first game of the night. Boston favored by 12 in this one. 214 over under. Only real news here is Aaron Baines is going to be out. Timofey Mozgov is questionable, and Jonathan Simmons is probable. Nikola Vucevic coming off a big game. Jason Tatum has been absolutely crushing recently. Had 24 points, 14 rebounds against the Knicks last time out. This game is a little bit interesting. I don't expect Orlando to be able to keep this one close, but I think they keep it close enough through most of this game to give some of these guys value in tournaments. Starting on the Orlando side of things, Gordon, very, very tough to overlook given how well he has been playing recently. He's just been absolutely crushing it. 7,600 over on DraftKings, a very affordable price for him. In a decent matchup here against a Boston team. They've been middle of the pack defending the rim and also on the glass. So Aaron Gordon's someone that I would not shy away from in tournaments tonight. If you look at his price over here on FanDuel, he is 8,200, a little tougher to get in there, but someone that I do have a little bit of interest here. And then obviously we've talked about Vucevic coming off a massive triple-double here. A good spot for him too. Again, Boston has struggled on the boards a little bit this season, so I like Vucevic in tournaments. Evan Fournier coming off a big game against the Sixers. He's actually leading the team in usage so far this season at 27.6%. Someone that I think you can target over here on DraftKings, again in tournaments, not someone I'm really looking at in cash games. 5,900 on FanDuel, someone you can look at there too. I think this is a spot where he could get on top of that salary, so I definitely don't mind using him. Orlando has been just getting obliterated on the boards. They're allowing 51 rebounds per game to opponents, and that's going to make Al Horford and Jason Tatum two guys that I absolutely love in this spot. Jason Tatum, again, has been crushing it, coming off a massive double-double against the Knicks, 24 points, 14 rebounds. The rebounding for him has been outstanding, and in a matchup where I expect him to be able to feast on the glass, I like Jason Tatum in all formats here. Someone that I am definitely considering as a top option across the board. He also leads the team in usage at 26.2%, so that's really, really promising for him. Kyrie Irving coming in at 7K, coming off a little bit of a down game. Had that bounce back game against Toronto, then a down game against the Knicks. The minutes have been solid for him. I still like him as someone that you can look at pretty much in all formats on DraftKings at 7K. 8K, I could understand getting away from him here on FanDuel, but someone that you can look at in tournaments for sure. Jaylen Brown, still a little bit too cheap. He's going to break out at one point. Like, he's not going to continue to have these middling games where he's not shooting very well and not providing a whole lot on the other end of the floor. So I like taking shots on him in tournaments. He's a little too pricey, I think. Oh, no, 5,300. FanDuel lowering his price. So he's someone that I think you can roll out there. And Morris off the bench actually might see a few extra minutes with Aaron Baines being out tonight. So I definitely dig Morris, who just remains one of those options that's just way too cheap for the upside and the role that he has off the bench for the Celtics. And you can definitely look at Al Horford at center position if you want 7K on FanDuel. 6,200 on DraftKings. That feels a little bit too cheap. Yeah, definitely too cheap here. Again, I mentioned Orlando really struggling against on the glass. Al Horford, a guy could bring down double upside here. So Al Horford, someone to consider in this spot, especially in cash games. Just his role in the offense makes him just a fantastic cash game play. But 6,200, he has plenty of upside at that price. Moving on, Charlotte at Toronto. Toronto 9.5 point favorites, 225 over under in this one. We expect to get Kawhi Leonard back, which is fantastic, and DeLon Wright is doubtful for this game. That's all the injury news we have. Again, mentioned Kawhi Leonard coming back after resting. He's averaged 27.5 points, 11 rebounds through his first 2 games. Kawhi Leonard 8,800. Massive upside at that price. He's someone that I'm definitely looking at building around as a core option for me today. 9,800. I could see I could see getting away from him at this price on FanDuel just because like a small forward you have Kevin Durant just a little bit more, but at the top like there's a pretty big gap here from Giannis to Kawhi. Like I think Kawhi Leonard has 50 plus fantasy point upside in this spot against a Charlotte team that has struggled a little bit on defense on the boards, and they really struggled against small forwards last season. So Kawhi Leonard, a guy that I absolutely love in this spot, and here on DraftKings, it's just tough to get away from him with that multi-position eligibility. You can play him at so many spots. So Kawhi Leonard gonna be a core option for me tonight. Kyle Lowry coming off a massive game. I still like him. He still has obviously upside at that $7,600 price tag on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, 8,400, probably gonna be a fade for me in that spot, but shooting the ball really well whenever he was playing those first 2 games with Kawhi Leonard. Shot 15 of 20 from the floor. If he's going to continue to shoot that well, that gives him a decent amount of upside here. So he is someone that I like. Charlotte. Now this is to both guard positions, not just point guards, but Charlotte giving up some monster numbers to both guard positions this season. I'm scrolling up through my notes to find it, but it is something like 60 points and like 29 rebounds and a whole bunch of assists so far this season to guards. It is 60.2 points, 29.1 rebounds, and 12.9 assists to both guard positions so far this season. So that's going to make Kyle Lowry someone to definitely consider. And then I definitely think going back to the well with Danny Green at his mid-range price, let everybody down in that last game, but 4,300 on DraftKings has plenty of upside at that price. Can get some steals and things like that too. So I do absolutely love Danny Green as a value option here tonight. I want to wait and see who gets the start, whether it's Joe Val or Ibaka. Valanciunas coming off a solid outing against the Wizards. It's just he's a guy that can put up monster numbers in limited minutes. It's just a matter if he gets the minutes. Tournaments for Joe Val, but Serge Ibaka, 5,300, has looked stellar this season, even in limited minutes. Dude has a pretty solid floor given the matchup here, so I like Serge Ibaka regardless of really who starts. You can roll him out in all formats, and Fred VanVleet still in play with DeLon Wright being out. I don't want to attack the Raptors too much, but Kemba, always a tournament option. We've seen the shooting. We've seen the usage for him priced down in this spot a little bit. Feel free to take shots on him in tournaments. Batum always has GPP upside, guy that can rack up triple-doubles. Price is really fair over here on DraftKings at 5,400. Outside of him, there's really not anyone I'm looking at from the Charlotte side of this. If you want to maybe plug and play some Malik Monk as a cheap option, or even MKG. Still, MKG's minutes going to be fairly limited. I don't expect him to get up to that 29-minute mark here, but someone that you can use as a value option. 5K on FanDuel, probably priced out of consideration. Next game of the night, we have the Knicks taking on the Bucks. Milwaukee 11-point favorites in this one, 223 over under. Milwaukee has been really good this season. They've been shooting a ton of 3-pointers. It's a really good spot for them. I absolutely love pretty much all the Bucks in the spot. That starts with Giannis, who obviously fantastic option. His usage so far this season, 37.4%. That's just absolutely insane. That's like Westbrook and Harden type numbers. No issue paying up for him on either site. 12-2, a little tough to stomach. 11-1, a little bit better price, but obviously no issue paying for him here. I do absolutely love Chris Middleton here. Middleton's a guy who's been playing really, really well. Minutes down a little bit compared to what I expected them to be. I expected him to be in the high 30s, but double-digit field goal attempts. This is a spot he's averaging 14.5 field goal attempts per game through his first 2 games in a matchup against a Knicks team that has really been poor on defense. They've allowed at least 100 points in each of their 3 games. Opponents are shooting 45% from the floor against them. Middleton, an excellent spot-up shooter, which was a huge weakness for the Knicks last season. They allowed 1.05 points per possession on spot-ups and almost 55% field goal percentage. Middleton, a guy spotting up on about 21% of his possessions this season. Last season. So I like him a whole heck of a lot here as a way to get some mid-range exposure. Eric Bledsoe, also someone that you can definitely roll out. He's looked really good. 6,700, a little bit too cheap for the upside that he has. And then you can definitely go with Malcolm Brogdon, who has been really solid for them as well. Getting the minutes, the production has been there. He's another guy that can hit from 3 against a Knicks team that is allowing a lot of 3-pointers, and a Milwaukee team that is taking a lot of 3-pointers. So I like him a decent amount too. Brook Lopez, I don't expect a bunch of minutes out of him, but over here on DraftKings, where he is still affordable at 4,600, someone that you can consider. I would not expect to see him get out of that 20 to 22, maybe 24 point mark tonight. You can, go with some Ursan as well there, but no one else really I'm looking at from the Milwaukee side of things. On to the Knicks. Moutier is out, Hicks is out, Knox is out, and Courtney Lee is out for this game. Knox actually expected to be out for several weeks. Whenever he went down, that led to minutes for Damian Dotson. As we can see, he played 22 minutes last game. 10 points, a couple steals, a couple rebounds, and some assists. He's going to be a very popular value option tonight. I expect him to get a decent amount of run. Someone that you can definitely look at here. Bucks struggling against 3-point shooters. Dotson is an appealing, 3-point shooter for them. So you can definitely lock him in as a value option if you need to do so. Over here on FanDuel, they've already priced him up, but even at 4K, definitely someone that you can consider. Noah Vonleh actually got a little bit of extra run in that last outing too. Shockingly, it wasn't Hezonja. Luckily, it wasn't Hezonja. But Noah Vonleh, someone else that could get a few extra minutes. Vonleh has double upside in limited minutes. So Vonleh, I think, is a guy that I'm going to have some tournament exposure to tonight. Tim Hardaway Jr. continues to be a fantastic play in all formats, has plenty of upside. Field goal attempts just going to be through the roof for him every single night. 32% usage rate. Absolutely no issue with using him as a core option if you so choose. I like him across the industry in pretty much all formats. And then Enes Kanter, a guy, massive upside against a Bucks team that got destroyed on post-ups last season. Kanter just loves to work down there in the low post. They've also struggled a little bit on the glass. So I like Cantor in this spot, 7,500 on FanDuel, a little bit cheaper on DraftKings at 7,300. There is some risk that he sees limited minutes, but the 35, 31 in those two games, 27 gives him a pretty safe floor, I believe. So he's someone that I do have interest in as well if you're wanting to lock in a mid-range center. Indiana facing the Timberwolves. I feel like I should have more interest in this game than I actually do, given how bad the Timberwolves have looked. They've given up, they're allowing like 125 points per game so far this season through 3 games. They have a defensive rating of 121.7. They're allowing opponents to shoot 47.2% from the floor. I feel like I should just love the Pacers in this spot. And if injury news goes the way that it could, there definitely could be some excellent options here. Sabonis is questionable for this one. TJ Leaf is questionable as well. So await the news on that. If both of those guys are out, that's going to open up some Kyle O'Quinn. Obviously had a massive game against Brooklyn, 19 minutes, 32 fantasy points. A little bit risky. There's always risk with Kyle O'Quinn. Foul trouble could be there for him. But he's someone, 3,600. He's also fairly cheap still over here on FanDuel at 3,900. He would get 18, maybe 20 minutes if both those guys are out. So he would be one of the better value options on the slate there. Looking at the rest of the Pacers, Victor Oladipo still perfectly fine. Bounced back against Brooklyn, doubled it, the 20+ field goal attempts in back-to-back games. Very appealing. Usage is going to be there for him. We know that. I'm not scared of Jimmy Butler defense. Like, I know he's an excellent one-on-one defender, but this defense has just been so bad, even with him being in the lineup. So I definitely think Victor Oladipo is someone to consider getting a decent amount of exposure to here. Darren Collison, someone I have a lot of interest in as well, still coming in at like 4,700 on DraftKings. He has upside, he has potential in this matchup. He just needs the minutes. Minutes have been up and down for him, but someone that I think you can roll out in tournaments. Same with Corey Joseph. We saw him eat into some of Collison's minutes last game. He's a value option to consider here. Again, this Timberwolves defense has just been so bad. Everybody from the Pacers is in play. Tyreek Evans off the bench. We know he's going to get a decent amount of run. High usage guy off the bench. He has a ton of upside here. Bogdanovich and Thad Young. I absolutely love Thad Young at his price, 4,900 on DraftKings and 5,100 on FanDuel. Has not really put up a monster game yet. I mean, we saw the 25 against Memphis, but this is a matchup against a Timberwolves team that really struggles in the post and really struggles at the rim and really struggles to keep opponents off the glass. This is kind of a spot where Thad Young could have a pretty monster game. So I like Thad Young at his price, 4,900. Again, I mentioned Bogdanovich, someone that you can always consider. Miles Turner. I'm so over Miles Turner at this point. His minutes seem to be pretty much capped at like 27, 28. If this game stays close, Turner could put up a monster game here against Karl Anthony Towns, and his lack of defense, tournaments only. Still, if we see that Sabonis and Leaf are out, I would feel a lot more comfortable with Miles Turner. On the flip side of this, Minnesota, obviously Jimmy Butler coming back, it's going to put a little bit of a damper on the Derrick Rose resurgence. 4,400, still someone you can consider, but I'm not chasing that monster game. Expect his minutes to dip down back into the mid-20s here. I'm not chasing the Derrick Rose game. If you want to do it, feel free, but have fun with that. Jimmy Butler, fantastic option, all formats. We know he has the big game potential. We know the usage is going to be there. We know the field goal attempts are going to be there for him. Absolutely no issue using him as a core option. I'm still leaning towards Kawhi over Jimmy Butler, but Butler comes in at a little bit cheaper price. So Butler, a guy you can consider here as well. Cat in tournaments, we saw him actually put up a solid game last time out with the 31 points, but with Jimmy Butler coming back, some of that offense is going to go back to Butler. So Towns just someone I'm looking at in tournaments. This Pacers team struggled against spot-up shooters last season. They also struggled in the paint as far as defending field goals in the paint. They allowed opponents to shoot 42% in the paint, 65% at the rim, and we know that Andrew Wiggins, a guy, doesn't really do a whole lot outside of the paint and in the mid range. So Andrew Wiggins, I think someone that we can definitely consider here. 6K on DraftKings, more of a cash option. I think 35 fantasy points, definitely in the realm of possibility for him. Again, this Pacers team also struggled against spot up shooters, 1.03 points per possession allowed last season to spot up shooters. Wiggins, a guy spotting up about 21% of the time. So feel free to get some Wiggins exposure if you so choose. Heading to Chicago at Dallas. This game currently no projected total or spread in this one at the moment. Dirk Nowitzki is out. Devin Harris is out. Harrison Barnes is doubtful. Chris Dunn expected to be back for this one. A lot of interest in this game on both sides. Dallas defense has not been great. Opponents are shooting 63.4% on above the break threes against them, 54.1% overall from three against Dallas this season. That makes Zach LaVine very, 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 very appealing. That $7,100 price tag on DraftKings. A guy not shooting from three very well this season, but those 6-7 3-point attempts, very appealing. We know the usage is going to be there, 32.3%, averaging 31.5 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He's only shooting, again, 31% from three. He's been a better 3-point shooter than that in his career at times. So someone that I feel like you kind of just have to play at that price. Like, that's just too cheap. 7,600 even on FanDuel. That's still too cheap for Zach LaVine. There's another guy that I'm going to get to a little bit later on DraftKings that is way too cheap as well. But Zach LaVine at 7,100, fantastic spot for him. I do like Portis as well, even with DeAndre Jordan anchoring the paint. The Mavericks still struggling a little bit on the glass, so I do like Portis here as well. Chris Dunn has plenty of upside in the spot. Like I said, he is expected to come back tonight. I do like some Chris Dunn at that price in tournaments. He's another guy, triple-double upside. Probably going to eat a little bit into Zach LaVine's usage, but Chris Dunn, I think, is someone that you can definitely consider here. And Parker has been a little bit disgruntled. Hasn't really been that great. Not shooting the ball terribly well, but someone at that price, 4,800 on DraftKings, lots of upside at that price, even 5,500. So I like taking some tournament shots on Jabari Parker. On the flip side of things, Bulls getting just destroyed on the boards, allowing 52.5 rebounds per game through their first two. They're also getting blasted from three. Opponents are shooting 40% from three against them. Above the break threes, they're allowing 40.3%. Obviously, that makes Luka Doncic very, very appealing. Coming off a massive game against the Timberwolves, those 3-point attempts, nine last game, 5 the first game, very, very appealing for Luka. Very, very tough to not consider him as someone that you want to get a lot of exposure to here. DeAndre Jordan, very, very high up on my list. We saw him with a monster game against Towns, but even against Phoenix, still very, very solid. Double-digit rebound. He has 20 and 10, 20 and 12 upside here. So especially against Wendell Carter Jr., a rookie, not going to be terribly experienced keeping DeAndre Jordan off the glass. So I do love me some DeAndre Jordan pretty much in all formats. Going to be someone that I'm looking to build around, at least as it stands early on this season, or early on this morning. Dennis Smith Jr., I do like a decent amount, but Chris Dunn coming back is probably going to hurt him a little bit. But I do like some Dennis Smith Jr. in tournaments. Absolutely love Wes Matthews in pretty much all formats. Again, a team that's really struggling to defend the three-point line. Wes Matthews, a guy that has historically shot better at home in Dallas. If he's going to put up double-digit three-point attempts tonight, it's going to be really tough to ignore him, especially at 5K. I think he has tournament upside, but also just way too cheap across the industry. He is someone that I'm going to be getting a decent amount of exposure to in all formats. Dwight Powell has been outstanding in limited minutes, but again, it's coming in limited minutes. Probably off my radar at that price tag, but if you want to get some exposure there, I think you can. And JJ Barea always in play off the bench, even at 4,900. Just an offensive spark plug, can do everything for this team off the bench. So I like Barea a decent amount if you need a sub 5K point guard. Moving on, we have Memphis taking on the Jazz. Utah, 10.5 point favorites. This line shot up like 10 points shortly after opening. It was up to about 219. At one point, I think it's back down to about the 217.5 mark. I don't really have a lot of interest in this game. The Jazz have been playing faster, and their defense has looked terrible. They're giving up 123.5 points per game over their first 2 games. That being said, I don't expect that to continue. The pace might, but the defense is not going to continue. But if you want to, you can get some Mike Conley at his price, 6,600. Can definitely take advantage of that salary there. We've seen at times Utah has struggled against guards that can drive to the rim, even with Gobert there. And Conley, a guy in his limited minutes last season, 32% of his shots came at the rim. So Conley's someone, I think, if you're wanting to get exposure to this game, because I don't think anyone's going to really look there, Conley, an excellent tournament option here. Donovan Mitchell, perfectly fine if you want to roll him out. If I was going anywhere here, it would be looking at a few guys. Joe Ingles, Scranton Strangler, has just been outstanding. He's shooting 70.4% from the field, 64.7% from three-point range. That's going to come down, but Joe Ingles has been one of the best three-point shooters in the league for the past couple seasons. So Joe Ingles, you can definitely go there if you so choose. Jay Crowder has looked really good as well. He's a value option you can get exposure to here if you want to get exposure to this game. I'm not going back to the Garrett Temple well at 4K and coming off a monster game. I'm not going to do that. Jaren Jackson Jr., 24 minutes and 28 minutes, 24 points and 28 minutes off the bench last game. I still have a decent amount of interest in him, with Jermichael Green being out with that jaw fracture. So Jaren Jackson Jr., one of the only guys that I have a lot of interest in. Here, Caspi is a decent value punt. We know the corpse of Chandler Parsons can't play a whole lot of minutes, and with Jermichael Green being out, I would expect Caspi to get close to 24, 25 minutes. A guy historically has been a great spot-up shooter, and that's something that Utah has struggled against in the past. So Caspi, a punt option for you tonight. Washington at Portland. Portland favored by 5, 226 over under. Damian Lillard, 8,600 on DraftKings. He is more expensive over on FanDuel at 10K, but way too cheap on DraftKings. I absolutely love Damian Lillard in the spot. Going to be someone that I have a ton of exposure to. Here, the rest of Portland, CJ McCollum, very, very cheap. His production is going to take a little bit of a dip. In the past, CJ McCollum has spent a lot of time running some of the offense when Damian Lillard has been off the floor. That is not as much the case here. Now that they have Nick Stauskas and Seth Curry, they're playing McCollum alongside Lillard even more. That's hurting him a little bit, but at 6,500, that's still a decent price tag for him. So you can get some exposure to McCollum. Not someone I'm in love with, but it becomes more of a price play the more his price takes a dip. The rest of Portland, Not really looking at Nurkic here, but 6,200, a little bit tough to overlook. Um, Stauskas, always going to be someone. The field goal attempts are going to be there for him if he gets the minutes. And if he's hitting those shots, he's going to get the minutes. So Stauskas, a tournament option always. I do have a little bit of interest if you need a mid-range or a cheaper punt option in Zach Collins. Zach Collins has looked outstanding. We've seen production from him in limited minutes. He's got to potentially be in foul trouble. That's always a concern, but he has upside at that price, 3,700. The rest of the guys, you perfectly fine and in the mid-range in cash and tournaments, but not a core option for me. There's better options at that price tag. On the flip side of things, Wall, excellent option here. 8,900, a little bit more than Lillard, but still probably too cheap for the matchup and the price tag. 9,800 on FanDuel. Still a little pricey, but I still have a lot of interest in Wall, who has been outstanding so far, averaging 25.5 points. He's shooting just 1 of 10 from 3. That's going to improve. He's not going to continue to shoot that poorly from beyond the arc. So Wall, a guy I expect big games out of a lot this season, and this is a pretty good spot for him going up against Damian Lillard. So I do like Wall a decent amount. Beal, still coming in a little too cheap on DraftKings at 7K. Over on FanDuel, 8K. It's borderline a little bit too expensive, but still a very good cash option. We know a lot of that offense is going to come from Wall and Beal, so if he's going to continue to get a lot of field goal attempts, I have absolutely no issue at that price tag. 7K, like I said, just a little bit too cheap over here on DraftKings. I do have a lot of interest in Otto Porter, 56 down to 5,600 on DraftKings. Still 6,300 on FanDuel. Tournaments only. He just has massive upside. Not a cash option for me, but definitely a good tournament option. I love Markieff Morris. Continues to put up solid games. He's just a producer. He just puts up good numbers night in, night out for the most part. With Dwight Howard being out of this one, we're probably going to see a decent amount of small ball from Washington. That's going to give Morris a boost. That's going to give Jeff Green a boost. Both of those guys, people that I have a lot of interest in. Portland struggles in the paints. They struggle in the mid-range and they struggle against post-ups. And if you look at Markieff Morris, 24% of his shots come at the rim, 27% short mid-range, 48% in the mid-range overall from Markieff Morris last season. And if you look at his post-up numbers, Markieff Morris, a guy posted up almost 20% of the time last season. So someone that I have a decent amount of interest in from this game. Moving on, San Antonio and the Lakers. This game, no total yet, but we already know that Rondo and Ingram are going to be out. Mo Wagner is out as well. I have a ton of interest in the Spurs side of this game. This game should be played at pretty fast pace. DeMar DeRozan has looked outstanding, averaging 6.5 assists through the first couple of games. Field goal attempts over 20 in back-to-back games. Shots are going to be there for him. Matchup is perfect for him. This fast-paced game should benefit him pretty well. He's someone that I'm going to have a ton of exposure to. It's kind of hard because there's a lot of guys in that mid-range price at like shooting guard, small forward that I have a ton of interest in, but DeRozan is really tough to overlook, especially given how good he has looked in a Spurs uniform. LaMarcus Aldridge as well, coming off a little bit of a down game against the Trailblazers, but I have a ton of interest in LaMarcus Aldridge here. Should bounce back nicely in a fantastic matchup for him. So LaMarcus Aldridge, a guy I'm going to be building a lot of my lineups around as well. Pau Gasol revenge game. If you want to take a shot in tournaments, feel free. On the flip side of things, it's going to open up minutes for Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball coming in at 5,500 on DraftKings. He is 6,800 on FanDuel. FanDuel obviously reacting a little bit faster to the suspension news than DraftKings, even though DraftKings got their salaries out like 6 hours after that news came out, but that's none of my business. Alonzo Ball, way too cheap over on DraftKings. Really tough to overlook that price. I would like to get confirmation that he's going to play over 30 minutes, but they really don't have anyone else at point guard now. So Alonzo Ball, I think, is a perfect option in cash and tournaments. Has triple-double upside, as we saw a few times last season. He is a core option for me. Just a guy I absolutely love here. Kuzma going to get some extra run without Ingram. He's perfectly fine. Shots going to start falling for him. He's not going to continue to shoot like absolute garbage. Expect him closer to 31, 32, maybe 33 minutes at 5,500, even in this matchup. That's still a very, very enticing price tag. 65 on FanDuel, I'm still okay with that there. LeBron, I don't have to tell you, LeBron is perfectly fine if you want to play LeBron. We've seen his production, fantasy production, a little bit down, but still, it's a spot where, like, LeBron's pretty much going to get you 45 plus fantasy points. So he's a guy you can definitely roll out. Minutes are a little concerning, but yeah, LeBron's perfectly fine in all formats. You can roll Lance out. You expect him to see right around 20 minutes here. He has the ability to get on top of his super cheap price tag at 3,800. It's Lance, though, so exercise some caution. Josh Hart has looked fantastic. 5,100 on DraftKings, still a little bit too cheap for a guy that's going to play 30-plus minutes and has plenty of upside. So I like Josh Hart. And JaVale McGee can be rolled out in all formats. I don't expect him to struggle too much with Lonzo in that starting lineup over Rondo. Just been absolutely crushing. He's a guy that's obviously averaged in his career pretty solid numbers in limited minutes. So I do like some JaVale McGee in a pretty decent matchup. The Spurs defense not as vaunted as they used to be. Coming to the last game of the night, we have the Phoenix Suns taking on the Golden State Warriors. Golden State, this is a spot where I would say there is a greater than 0 chance that somebody rests. And if I had to guess right now, early on, without any kind of news, without any kind of indication that this is going to happen, I'm just saying there is a greater than 0 chance that it does. Draymond Green would be the guy that I would be concerned about resting here. But I'm going to operate like he's going to play, and if anything comes out later in the day, that information will be updated in Discord if you are in the channel. Golden State coming back from Denver, a little bit concerning as well, but they're favored by 14.5. This game, 230.5 over under. Probably gonna blow out. Like that's a pretty safe expectation. That being said, I still have a lot of interest in Stephen Curry. Curry's been like the only guy to hit from three for them this season. 3-point attempts and 3-point shooting has been a little bit down for this team. But Curry, the only real guy that has been looking good from beyond the arc. There's also a little bit of narrative. He needs just 8 3-pointers to move ahead of Jamal Crawford, who he is taking on tonight. Narrative Street, there you go, on the all-time list. So I do like Curry a decent amount. I mentioned one guy that was going to be way too cheap, Klay Thompson. I know he hasn't been great this season. I get it. This is a good matchup for Klay Thompson, though, going up against Devin Booker. The Suns are playing a little bit better defensively. They're not playing as fast, but Klay Thompson, 5,600 on DraftKings. Way too cheap. That's a guy that I have a lot of interest in tonight. I know I've said way too cheap a bunch of times tonight, but Klay Thompson, way too cheap on DraftKings. FanDuel, I understand fading him at 66, but 5,600, too cheap. Again, Draymond Green perfectly fine if he plays. Um, Kevin Durant, it's Kevin Durant. Yeah, I would lean probably towards Giannis or LeBron over Durant, but Durant probably going to go overlooked in this spot, I think. So Durant's a guy that I do have interest in if I can afford him. Um, I do like Jones a lot as a value option here going up against DeAndre Ayton. Struggled last game, foul trouble, obviously a little bit of concern for the young kid, but a decent spot for him. So I like Jones as a value play, and you can go back to Kevon Looney too. Um, Moving on to the Phoenix side, it's almost always going to be the same two guys. Devin Booker. I don't care about the match of Klay Thompson. Devin Booker, 8,400, fantastic spot for him. DeAndre Ayton, down game against Jokic, obviously, but going up against Damian Jones in a very, very good matchup. DeAndre Ayton at 6,800, 40 plus fantasy point upside. I'll just leave it at that. He's got tons of upside on top of that price. So I like DeAndre Ayton a decent amount in this spot tonight. You can go with Isaiah Cannon. Minutes were solid for him last game. I had some concern that Jamal Crawford being there might eat into his minutes. It did a little bit. He only played 30, but that game was a little bit of a blowout. You can go back to Cannon, but I'm jumping off that train. There's other places I would rather look. Ariza's minutes went down last game. That was a little bit expected. TJ Warren, 4,500. You can go there. Coming off the bench, I like him at that price tag. Tonight, that's probably all that I'm really considering. Jonas Jerebko, a guy I think would get some run if this blows out, or if Draymond Green sits this one out. So that's, again, some news to keep an eye on. Jonas Jerebko, keep him in the back of your mind. But that's going to do it for tonight's slate. Again, 9 games, lots of mid-range options on this slate. My first inclination is probably to go very, very mid-range heavy, I think, for this one. So it's going to be interesting to see if any great value opens up to get some of the studs. But right now, it's looking like my lineups are going to be a very mid-range heavy. So we'll see how that goes the rest of the day, though. But good luck tonight in all your contests, and I will be back on Wednesday.